I am so blessed that the timing, the hardship of everything when starting my very first business.
There was that period of COVID for all agents, like 2 months. Oh man, there's no activity whatsoever. Like, what am I going to do? What kind of mindset pulled you out of it?
That idea is either going to motivate somebody or it's going to paralyze them. Do I have to choose between having big business or being a good mother? You can be both, and there's nothing wrong with.
Was there like a particular moment or maybe achievement that you're like, all right, I can do this. Like, I can be an agent. I can run a realtor business.
Those little moments throughout my career, very first time, and I did end up on that wall.
What point of the divorce process do you usually enter, or like at what point do you come in? Have they already made that decision?
The best way to do that is to make sure that you've got strong referral partnerships with divorce attorneys that pull you in, and everybody in your area knows you're the divorce realtor.
Deal breaker in one of your clauses, everybody has a common goal to sell a property and get the most equity as possible.
Is to first understand what the real problem is. And it's essentially, trigger questions. That time is your best tool when dealing with people who are in high emotion.
Today on the Atlanta Agent Playbook, we're diving into one of the most emotional and underserved corners of real estate, the divorce niche. And there's no one better to break it down than Megan Farrow. She's become a go-to expert in guiding clients through difficult transitions with clarity and calm. And she's built a referral-driven business by mastering a space most agents avoid. We're unpacking how she found this lane, why it works, and what every Atlanta agent can learn from it. Megan, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Benjamin. I'm happy to be here.
So, you got into real estate in 2018. This was right before the pandemic. You had a newborn on the way. What made you jump into real estate at that time?
Oh, that's a great question. So I had I worked in medicine before I transitioned into real estate. And even though I loved it and I loved serving and I loved my patients, it was very long hours. It was a very stressful job. And if anybody that has worked in a hospital setting knows that administration is probably the bear of your job. It's the people you work for that kind of suck the joy out of it. At least that was my experience. And I thought I wanted to do something different. My husband was an entrepreneur and business owner, and I always admired that about him. And were it not for him saying, you could totally do this too, take the jump, I don't know that I ever would have, but with his support, I thought, well, maybe we change it up. You spend so much time going to school to get that fancy degree, to get the letters behind your name, to go work at a job. And you think, I've made it, and it's just not what you thought it was going to be. And then being gifted this opportunity to explore something else. We had a woman in our lives that, said, I think you'd be great at real estate. She was a realtor, very successful one. She said, I think you'd be great. You give it a try. I got licensed, and I think 2 weeks after my license, I got my first listing. I just jumped right into production. It was a whirlwind. Then we found out we were expecting our second child. And then just a few months later, the pandemic hit. So it was definitely a trial by fire. And I wouldn't have it any other way. I am so blessed that the timing and the hardship of everything when starting my very first business in a new industry that I knew nothing about at an unprecedented time and market, it made me who I am today. So I'm very grateful for all of it.
Yeah. What kind of mindset does it take for you to persevere through all of that and still make it out on top? Were there moments where you're like, man, what am I doing? COVID just hit. I've got a newborn. I quit my job. There was that period of COVID for all agents, like 2 months, where we're like, oh man, there's no activity whatsoever. Like, what am I going to do?
Right.
Like, we can't even get in the house without a mask or et cetera. What was that like? What kind of mindset pulled you out of it?
So the thing about being a business owner is that it's all on you.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea is either going to motivate somebody or it's going to paralyze them. And for me, it was a motivating factor.
Yeah.
Win or lose, it's all on me. And I think that that can be very easily very empowering.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, learning about leverage early on. My husband was very supportive and adamant that we get help with the kids. Being a mother that was very hands-on, that was hard for me. I'm like, wait, I have to choose. I think other women and mothers can relate. Do I have to choose between having big business or being a good mother? You
Right.
can be both, and there's nothing wrong with getting
Mm.
some leverage. And so we got a nanny, and that, oh my gosh, that was such a game changer. We talk about work-life balance. That question comes up a lot, especially for women who are mothers. I think that work-life balance concept comes up a lot, and I don't really know that that's like a fair way to think about it. I think it's more counterbalance.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need to fortify ourselves for the unexpected, because the unexpected will always happen. There is never going to be this point in time where your life and your business are in this homeostasis where everything is perfect and
Right.
there's no hiccups. So if you fortify yourselves and your lives with leverage and habits, then it's just about counterbalance,
Mm-hmm.
and you can make it happen, and then the mindset's a lot easier because you don't feel so swamped. Now that's not to say it's not hard, right? And it takes a lot of grit, but it's worth it. So that's probably what keeps me going.
Was there like a particular moment or maybe achievement that you're like, all right, I can do this. Like I can be an agent. I can run a realtor business.
Yeah, I think there were many, right? Looking back on my career, sometimes, you told me that you invited me here because I'm in the top 10% of Georgia. And, I would be lying if I didn't say that I have total imposter syndrome around that. I mean, I keep my head down and I work so much that I come up for air for just a moment, and I'll have, folks like you or like my team leader send me the top down sheet. And I'm like, oh, wow, I'm
Doing
look
all
where
right.
I'm at. I'm like, okay, we're doing
Yeah.
all right. Now head back down, and focus on your clients and the work. There were a lot of moments. I do remember my very first day walking into my market center, and I passed by a wall that had pictures of people. I had no idea who they were. There was about 8 photos, and above it, it said Agent Leadership Council. And I just remember in that moment thinking to myself, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to be up on that wall.
Nice.
Right. And so it's like those little moments throughout my career. Very first time, and I did end up on that wall. And I'm starting my 3rd year. So I've been up on that wall now almost 3 years. And that's essentially just our Agent Leadership Council that collaborates with our OP and our team leader to help make decisions for the market center. We're basically like the board of directors for the market center of 400 agents. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And then I remember my first time going to see Gary Keller. I thought to myself, wow, it'd be so great to have a conversation with him. And then I did, and this is a funny story. So I got a random email. It was like, Gary wants to talk to you, and,
Wow.
and set up a time. And I was like, spam, deleted it.
No way.
I did. And then about a week
You
later.
thought it was spam?
Oh, yeah. I was like, there's no way. Just delete. Like, who am I, right? About a week later, I got a text message from an unknown number. It was like, hey, we never heard back from you. This is, so-and-so with Gary Keller's office. And do you really not want to talk to him? And I was like, oh my gosh, is this real? And of course, I send it to my leadership team and my, my market center. And I was like, can we verify that this is like, can we, validate this? And they were like, yeah, it's legit. And I was like, I am so sorry. I thought it was spam. I just never thought. And then I had, I think, an hour and 20-minute long conversation
Wow.
with Gary. It was supposed to be 30 minutes,
So
40
cool.
minutes. And then that turned into a thing. So yeah, there are a lot of milestones in this business that just affirm that I am doing the right thing. I'm exactly where I need to be, and just keep going. I don't even feel like I've reached the summit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so powerful. Well, I want to shift into it. This is why our listeners are here.
Mm-hmm.
The divorce agent. So many agents either don't know about it or maybe aspire to jump into that niche. How'd you get into it?
I think most of your listeners just like cringed, honestly. That's typically the response I get when I share with other agents that I specialize in divorce.
Sounds terrible, right?
It's one of two responses. They're either like, I've never heard of that, right? Or most consumers, like, I've never even heard of that. Or the agents will say, oh, great, then I know who to refer. Because they don't even want to touch it.
They don't want to deal with it.
Which blows my mind. I'm just like, and I'll explain why. Divorce real estate. I didn't know how I'd end up here either. I fell into it.
Okay.
Initially. I was just in production, and there was one 6-month period I had done several divorce, transactions.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved them. I don't know. There was something that was different about it. Okay. They are differently paced. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about how those transactions go. You'll see, like, I think I saw a reel the other day of another agent made that I know, and he was he was like in the house, and someone off screen was throwing stuff at him, and and he's like, oh, by the way, I do divorce real estate too. And I chuckled, because it has never been like that. I mean, I think that agents automatically assume that when you engage with divorcing peoples, that it's highly contentious and that you're a part of it.
Yeah.
It may be highly contentious, but you're not a part of that. Not typically.
Right.
And typically when you are working with these two individuals who are going through a particularly difficult time, they're usually on their best behavior when they're interacting with you. Nobody wants to be the bad guy. So typically they're on their best behavior. They're very collaborative. They really lean on you as being the expert, especially if it's an issue where they cannot come to a resolve together. Then they'll just defer to you, which just makes my job a lot easier, because ultimately in these transactions, you're not working for one or the other.
Right.
You're there for the equity of the house. And so it really takes you out of that emotional, sort of circle. And while you can be empathetic to their situation, you're doing them a disservice by making that your primary lead into why you want to help them.
Right.
Oh, I want to be a divorce realtor because I just got divorced and I know exactly what it's like. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think you need to be very careful with that.
Right.
Because you're not serving them at a high level. If that really is your primary, value proposition. I think more importantly, your ability to stay grounded in what the goal is and help these people work through very difficult steps to get the end result, which is, liquidating, whether it be their marital primary home, or sometimes it's, additional properties. You'll have couples that invested, or they've got commercial properties, and so liquidating those assets and being that person that's just going to get the job done.
Right.
That is how you can serve them at a high level. And there's a way to get in on that.
What point of the divorce process do you usually enter? Have they already made up their mind, like, okay, we need to sell the house because we need to get the equity out, and the attorney maybe reaches out to you, or like, at what point do you come in? Have they already made that decision?
I'm going to tell all my secrets today. Okay. So oftentimes the realtor is the last person they think of when building their team for the divorce. Okay. Right. And it shouldn't be, especially if it is determined that the marital home does need to be sold, because that's not always the case, right? I'm not out here chasing listings.
Mm.
Okay. It is important that you get involved as soon as possible. And the best way to do that is to make sure that you've got strong referral partnerships with divorce attorneys that pull you in when they feel that this particular case is definitely going to need your expertise. So on the front end, you're very consultative. And you can charge a fee for this if you'd like. You can do it for free if you'd like. You can do it for free until you learn the ropes and then charge, however you want to do it. But you are introduced ideally to, the divorcing peoples through an attorney. With that, you kind of are able to ride on the trust that's already been established, right, with that attorney. And you're helping them figure out, one, do they have to sell? Two, there's likely going to be a displaced persons. Are they eligible for a repurchase? If one of the individuals wants to keep the house, can they even do a cash out refi? You assume that your attorneys are going to take care of all this stuff. They do not.
No.
They, I can't tell you how many times folks will get all the way through their settlement agreement. They've signed it. The judge has stamped it, which means it's now permanent. And then they find out, I can't afford this house by myself. These are very important details that you want to hash out before you even get to mediation. Especially if someone's going to keep the house. If you're going to have someone that's going to say, I'm going to keep the house, I'm going to do a cash out refi, I can afford it. We treat it like a repurchase. Do a home inspection. Just because you live there, it does not mean that you know that maybe something is happening with the home. Is the roof going to need to be replaced 12 months after your divorce is finalized? Should concessions be made at mediation prior to settling on, monies and disbursements? Is the title clear? Did somebody take out a HELOC without the other person knowing and use the house as a bank? That's information you'd want to know before you get to the settlement table. So I help on that front end. And it leverages the attorney because the attorneys, they don't want anything to do with that. Do you know how they evaluate homes? They go on Zillow and they use the Zestimate.
Really? They don't even send an appraiser?
Occasionally they'll have an appraiser go out. Typically what I have found is that the appraisal report will sometimes have gaps in it, gaps of information that need to be filled. And there are dangers with appraisals. I mean, even when I'm working with a regular residential listing, if we decide to get a pre-listing appraisal, I do it with a very strong caveat that it's like, I don't want you to fall in love with this number. We're not going to be married to this number. If the appraiser comes in high, my recommendation is lower than that, I'm still going to really strongly suggest that you go with my recommendation, right? Because these appraisers, they can come from anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They can miss something.
It's an opinion.
That's right. They can come in low. They can come in way low because they're not, familiar with the area or they miss a comp or something. So you got to tread lightly with those. It's good information. We can use it as a barometer of value, but I don't think it's the rule of thumb. It should never be the rule of thumb, no matter what kind of, transaction you're doing. So yeah, those attorneys, when I talk to them and I say, hey, I'm going to do this, that, and the other for your clients before we even get to the settlement table, they're like, you're my new best friend. Any decent divorce attorney is carrying anywhere from 60 to 70 caseloads at a time. And if you want to get in divorce real estate, consider that while they may not all be sales, 64% of them will result in a home sale, which gives you two displaced individuals that you've now established a great amount of trust with because you didn't pick sides. Or you'll have at least one displaced individual. At a minimum, nobody transacts, and you just added two new people to your database.
Right.
There is no losing in this niche.
If someone keeps the house, maybe in 2 years they're like, well, I don't really want to keep this house anymore. That's right. So
that's right. You can ideally, hopefully help the displaced individual. but they both go in your database, and hopefully you're, touching them. And at a minimum, they're going to be so grateful for the help. You're helping people who are experiencing a difficult time, and you're making it less difficult for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to remember that. And that is a very strong referral for you. Even if you never actually transact,
Wow,
it's going to be a very strong referral for you.
So it sounds like there's a really big, almost like investment in time and consultative phase in the beginning. Once you have, let's say, all right, I'm listing this house, how is that transaction different than your typical transaction?
So the marketing and the services that I provide for my listings are across the board.
Okay.
And that's at every price point as well. So I offer staging for all of my listings. If a listing doesn't need it, we won't do it, obviously. But,
Right.
I would say most of them need staging of some sort. Occasionally we'll do pre-list appraisals if it's a unique property or there's just not a lot of comparables. Obviously aggressive marketing, Facebook ads, all the push, right? Everything that we all do, right? Photography, videography, all that, all the bells and whistles. We do that for the divorce home as well. There are nuances, of course. You want to make sure that it is very clear that all communications will be in writing, either through group text thread or group email. And that's really important to establish early on and then to reinforce it, because there will inevitably be a time where one of them will reach out to you privately. It does happen. It's not always sneaky. Sometimes it's just I hit reply instead of reply all, right? You want to tell them that the transparency in our communication is vital to the success of the sale. We have to be transparent. I need everybody to be on the same page at all times. And you need to make sure that there's a confidentiality veil on the other side of that as well. So when you are promoting this listing and when you are marketing and everybody in your area knows you're the divorce realtor, you got to be very careful to make sure that not everybody knows that every listing you take is a divorce listing, right? Because you lose leverage potentially in negotiations, right? I mean, I've gotten so good at it now that when I go show a home to some buyers and we're walking around, I know it's a divorce listing.
Really? What are some of the tail signs?
There will only be closet will only have one gender typically. The other side will be empty.
I've seen that before.
The other side will be empty. Or it'll be really evident that somebody is living in the guest bedroom and somebody is living in the primary bedroom. Little things like that. And so I use this experience and knowledge because I also work with buyers. And then I layer that into my divorce listings. Look, I need you to have both sets of clothing in the closet. Okay, I need you to have, we never want to give the impression that this is an event-based listing, which is an event-based, foreclosure or divorce or we got to get the heck out of here ASAP, right? Because that's never going to bode well for your leverage. So we do prep the listing a little bit differently in that sense. And then the communication is super important. If you are lucky enough to be brought in prior to the settlement agreement, I do have kind of like a go-to, list of preferences, language that I like having put in the settlement agreement. Now you got to be really careful, especially when you're new with this. You got to have a great relationship with the divorce attorney for them to say, yes, I'm going to put this in my legal document, But things like I like to avoid scheduled price reductions. Okay. It hog ties me with being able to market the property appropriately.
Right.
Okay. They don't know what the market's going to be like. We know our market is very volatile. It could change every 30 days. And so if you're telling me that we have to reduce the property by 10% if it doesn't sell in the first 30 days, but we're in a 46-day market, we've now expensed equity, maybe unnecessarily. Okay. Or maybe it doesn't need a full 10% reduction. Maybe it only needs like a 2% or a 3% reduction. it really limits my ability to serve these people and serve the equity at a very high level when they put those, structured reductions in. I also like to be specifically named as the realtor. This helps with any sort of, well, it's her best friend, or it's
Mm,
his, so and so, or whatever. And then I like to be named as the deal breaker. These are just a few. I've got several, but these are just a
interesting.
few that I like to have in there. That just benefits everybody,
Hmm.
because ultimately I am the professional and the expert. You're hiring me to do a job, and you guys can get as emotional as you want,
Right.
and you can trust that I'm going to do right by the equity. So I like to have that in the settlement agreement, and then we're good. I mean, I've got several divorce, opportunities at the moment, and um I don't know, I really enjoy them. Another benefit to being in this niche specifically is that
Hmm.
it really cuts back on objections.
Okay.
So a lot of the objections that agents get trained on from their market centers, justifying compensation,
Mm,
identifying motivation of the client.
yeah.
How deep is it? Are we ready to go? Are they saying things like, well, we don't have to sell, right? It
Right.
takes all of that off the table.
Almost makes it easier.
I mean, I would be shocked if they even read my listing agreement. I mean, they
Yeah.
just, the divorcing clients are like,
Mm,
you were referred by an attorney. This is what you do. You're highly specialized, and whatever it costs us, what we'll pay. And it just makes it easier. And then all I have to do is focus on what I love, which is selling the product.
mm. You mentioned deal breaker in one of your clauses. It sounds like to me, everybody has a common goal to sell the property and get the most equity as possible. But these two individuals, you're not a lot of the time dealing with one decision maker, but now you're dealing with almost two decision maker, two opinions. They
Mm-hmm.
both have to sign off on all the paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the common goal is to get the max amount of equity, but they're divorced for a reason. They probably don't, they're not in the best terms. How do you deal with some of those conflicts? And, let's say decision, inspections done, the buyer's asking for $10,000 in concessions. The husband's like, "Yeah, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be done with this." And
Mm-hmm.
the wife's like, "No, no, no, no. Like, I don't agree with that." How do you sort through some of those?
That's a really great question. And while that does happen, doesn't that also happen in our regular,
Mm,
doesn't that happen in regular residential contracts too?
mm,
You'll run into that sometimes where you'll have a wife that's in love with the house,
right.
but the something comes back on the inspection report and the husband has inflated it to be this, deal breaker thing. So I think part of our jobs as agents, no matter what kind of transaction you're working on, is to first understand
Hmm.
what the real problem is, because we all know sometimes the forward facing emotional outburst to,
Hmm.
a certain detail, there might be something underlying from
Mm.
that is completely unrelated. Okay, so you got to get a little psychological. I have studied a lot of NLP, neuro linguistic programming,
Okay.
and that has been a game changer, not just for my business but for my life.
Just like a hack.
Oh my gosh. Use it with your kids,
Mm,
use it not on your spouse, but with your spouse. Make sure they also understand what NLP is. And it's essentially, trigger questions that help to re-engage that prefrontal cortex, which is our
mm,
logic center of the brain. And then it chills out that back brain of ours, which is highly emotional. I
mm.
have also learned that time is your best tool when dealing with people who are in high emotion.
Okay.
Okay. They're texting you, they're blowing you up. It's a 911 emergency, which we all know there's no such thing as a true emergency in real estate. Okay. There really isn't.
Hmm.
Almost
No
everything
one's
is
dying.
almost everything is work outable,
Right.
truly, right?
Yeah.
Some may take more grease than others, but almost everything is work outable. Letting it breathe a little bit, especially if they're going at it in your group text, just back and forth, or they're trying to bait you. right? They'll try and I had one couple, he was constantly trying to bait me to be against her. You just let all that, you just don't even respond, okay? Because it's not serving them. Your job is to sell the house. Let them have their spat, let things cool, and then ask questions, okay? Ask questions. The individual who speaks the most in a conversation is the one who feels the best about how that conversation went.
Yeah.
The one who asks all the questions, like you, is the one who's controlling the direction of the conversation. One of them is losing it over needing to replace the roof, because that's a very, very big ticket item that is very common, especially in Georgia right now.
Yeah.
Because insurance is just nuts.
Crazy.
Make sure that you're asking a lot of questions, and then make sure that you have a catalog of solutions available for them, right? Make sure you're hyper aware of the numbers, the net numbers, because that's all they're thinking about, right?
Yeah.
The divorce is, maybe the divorce is not finalized yet, but the settlement agreement on the real estate has been decided, and they want to get paid. That's it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're the very last step to them starting their new chapter. So lean into that. Remind them why we're here, and remind them how close they are to that light at the end of the tunnel. And, are we really going to let X problem stop us? Now, I don't run into this a lot, but occasionally you'll have an individual that is non-compliant because they don't want to move. I can't afford to buy this house, but I'm not leaving.
Like almost going against the settlement, or?
Well, you want to make sure that you have an ironclad settlement when you're dealing with a situation like that. I mean, usually we know going into it that he doesn't want to sell the house, or she doesn't want to sell the house. That can be problematic because usually at that point in time, it's a very contentious separation. You could be looking at sabotage of your showings, non-compliance,
Right.
trashing the house.
Sounds like you're speaking from experience.
Yes. It does happen. One where she refused to leave for showings. They hired me after the settlement agreement was already put together, which was problematic because it was missing a lot of things that we obviously needed for this very contentious situation. And they ended up having to go back for a revision because it was just immovable. She refused to leave for showings. And then when we had showings, she would walk around in very promiscuous outfits.
Okay.
Anything that would make you feel uncomfortable.
Oh, no.
Okay. And she would walk around her house during the showings. And so obviously we needed to go back for a revision. It was very clear that she was, acting out of the settlement agreement.
How'd you deal with that?
I didn't have to.
Okay.
That's when you are so glad that you have that relationship with the attorney and you can advise them. And then you have situations where violence is party to the situation, and you have to navigate that with, I would say those are the hardest. DV situations, I do a lot of praying going into those. Those are really, really difficult because it's so raw. There really isn't. I mean, divorce in the beginning, it's very, very raw and you're fighting, and then you reach your settlement agreement and everybody feels like they have won something.
Yeah.
And then usually that's when you're actually starting to transact and things have kind of settled and you're there to get them paid. And so typically the transaction's easy. In DV situations, obviously it's that rawness doesn't go away. And so you just have to be as supportive. I mean, you can be empathetic, like I've said before, of course, but you really just need to focus on what the goal is and make sure that it gets done so that specifically, the victim can move on as quickly as possible. I would say that those are the absolute hardest cases. It's not the couples that are fighting and wanting to rip each other's heads off. It's the ones that are actually physically fighting, and there's children involved. Those are very, very difficult. But again, the attorneys, typically there's protective orders in place by the time you're engaged. There's, it's very well known. You got to make sure you stay in your lane in this niche.
Mm-hmm.
There are aspects of this that are law that you shouldn't be advising on and you shouldn't be
Mm.
participating in. Your role is to collaborate with those individuals and then to get the job done for the clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the things we preach at our team and our brokerage is figure out your niche. A lot of these new agents, their mistake is like trying to be everything and trying to, cater to all different types of clients. But I think the number one way to be successful is to figure out, what are you passionate about? What's working? Where's the money at for you? What kind of clients do you, correlate with the best?
Mhm.
For you, you certainly found this in being a divorce agent. For agents out there that are wanting to do the same, what's
Mhm.
your number one advice? How do you get started?
Oh my gosh, yeah. How do you start? Yeah, so there's a lot of shiny things in real estate, right? There's like
Mm-hmm.
1,000 different ways to lead generate. There's 1,000 different ways to touch your database. It's 1,000 different ways to interact with people. And you have your agents that they love to just cold call all
Mm-hmm.
day. I've got a good agent friend of mine. He cold calls 4 or 5 hours a day,
Wow.
Monday through Friday. He does great business. But you know what? When he wants to go take a vacation, nobody's cold
Mm.
calling for him, right?
Mm.
Everything's very transactional.
Right.
I am a relationship-based business, primarily referral-based, very, very high. I think this year I'm actually around 95% referral, and
Mm.
about 5% sign calls, which then turn into clients, of course. But if somebody is ready to lean into the niche, don't be afraid of the niche. Like, don't be afraid to be known as the agent that does that.
Yeah.
For a while, I was afraid to be the divorce realtor because in my mind, I was like, this is not a good look. But that's because I was thinking about it differently,
Mm-hmm.
and in the wrong way. I don't think I was thinking about it in a big picture, right? I'm not out here ambulance chasing couples that are divorcing. I think
Yeah.
that's awful, right? But I am providing a service for an underserved niche market in this industry.
Mm.
And I think that niching is going to be one of the strongest ways that realtors can combat AI and all of
Mm.
that stuff that's coming down the pipeline. Is our robots going to essentially replace agents? Well, not if you're
100%.
highly specialized in
Yeah.
something. So when you're ready to jump in, identify what speaks to you. And it's probably a good idea to have a little bit of experience in that field first, because
Yeah.
once you're in, you really want to be all in.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be sending that message pretty loud and clear to your database. So it's hard to reel that back when it's like, oh, yeah, I want to do probate. And then you get
Yeah.
your first probate and you're like, oh my gosh, this takes forever. I don't want to do this anymore. So make sure that you have a little bit of experience in it
Mm-hmm.
and that it touches your heart and that it's something that fills your cup. Because like
Yeah.
anything else that's worth doing, it's going to take sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Big goals require big sacrifice. So make sure your goal is worth it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was afraid to be the divorce realtor, but I'm not anymore because I know really the value in the service that I provide. When I was getting started, I did look into continuing education specifically for this field. And there's a lot of different kinds of courses and classes
Mm-hmm.
that you can take, and you can get letters after your name. And I have a few of those. So start there if you'd like, and a little bit of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then you want to network with the players that are already in that industry.
Mm.
And there's a lot of different niches that you can go into. You can niche into a specific kind of like buyer, like VA, I want to work with veterans, right? So who is it that are also in a veteran's life?
Yeah.
Who else is supporting veterans? Who's going to have the largest database of veterans, and how can I be their best friend?
Mm.
Okay. Probate. I was counseling an agent recently. She was like, I really love probate. I've done a few and it's in my heart. I love it. Where do I get started? And so we had
Mm.
about an hour phone call, and I said, you need to write a list of all the players that are involved in probate, down to financial advisors, because
Mm.
why not? Hospice centers, because why not? Probate attorneys, obviously, number one. And she called me a week later and she said, I just got done with my very first lunch with a probate attorney. And guess who his referral partner is? He doesn't have any agent referral
Wow.
partners that are specifically probate. And I'm his number one. I'm going to be his first call. And I'm like, there you go. You know, and
Nice.
that filled my cup so much, being able to counsel her and teach her how to do it. And then now she's doing it. So I have discovered that in this niche, I love helping other agents discover what it could be that they're really, really good at, and then develop that part of their business into something big. I think sometimes people think niches are small.
Yeah.
But it's specialized.
They're so deep.
You're highly specialized. And so you may not appeal to everybody, but you're one of few that are going to appeal to many, right? So, and there's enough to go around for sure. I mean, I have in my referral, a couple of firms in my referral book, and one of them is 9 attorneys. And if all of them are carrying 60 cases at a time, I can't handle all that. There's plenty at the table.
Wow.
So start there. Make a list of who else would be involved in this person's life. Another really big one, because we have boomers that are, a lot of them are aging in place, but we're getting to the point where those sales are going to start happening. So you could, specialize in senior relocation.
Yeah.
You could specialize in relocations nationwide. And now you're talking about a cross-state database, other agents,
referrals.
Exactly. Yeah. It is a referral based. When you niche, I would go through the referrals. I wouldn't necessarily go straight to consumer. So strengthen your B2B relationships, get really intentional about them, and then you'll be the first one they call.
Wow. You got me all jazzed up. I've got like all these ideas for awesome. Some of our agents.
Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, and for it to be underserved as well, like you said, it seems like there's just plenty to go around. So, so what's next? It sounds like you're passionate about giving back. You've had a tremendous amount of success. Do you want to build a team? What's next for Megan?
So my husband, he still owns the 2 other businesses that he runs, and he got licensed. And he wants to transact as well.
Oh, cool.
And he's so good. He's so good at real estate. He's so good at everything he does. Isn't that annoying? When you're with somebody and it's just like everything they touch turns to gold. That's him. So he got licensed, and he is very, very part-time right now, but he is one of my buyer agents.
Cool.
And then I have another new license. Actually, remember that nanny that I hired at the beginning of my career, that changed my life? Well, she stayed in our lives even after she had moved on and was no longer our nanny. And she got licensed, and I am ready to absolutely catapult her into the stratosphere. She's going to be incredible. I'm very, very excited. So I've got new agents right now, but I've got personal relationships with them. So for me personally, I think my max transactions per year is probably around 32 or 36 transactions, because it's all about that counterbalance, right? I'm still a mom of almost 3 now. And then I have hobbies too. Like I have a life, right? And that's very important to me. We build these big businesses for life's worth living, right? We don't. So for me, anything above and beyond that, I'm going to have to start giving to other agents. So yeah, building that team. But primarily this year, I'm working with my business coach, and we are developing niche and divorce real estate classes for agents, for market centers. I really love teaching. I love speaking in front of people, and helping them just grow and cultivate and like dig deep and figure out, where do I want my legacy to go? So I'm developing that. I'm going to be launching that this year. We're also going to have some print material available for agents, I think, online that are just like, hey, I just want to get the playbook and try it on my own. So I'm very excited about that. And my big focus, of course, is to stay in production, to help my 2 agents grow into their production. And then start teaching, hopefully all over the country. Wouldn't that be so cool? That would be fun, dude.
Look out, world. Megan Farrow,
who knows?
divorce classes.
You're a divorce realtor, right? Yeah, I love it. I'm very, very excited. This could be huge, huge business.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't decided yet if I want or need it to be that big.
Right.
But if I'm able to help somebody springboard into that and they're like, I want monster business,
Mm-hmm.
and this is how I want to do it, I would love to be part of that fuel behind it. I think probably my trajectory once I'm done with production is going to be moving into coaching.
Mm.
I think I just really would thrive in that space. I love pouring into people. I never feel competition with somebody. I always have faith that I'm doing and I am exactly where I'm supposed to be and doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. And if it's not for me, then it's not for me, right? So, yeah, being able to participate in that way in this industry would be, for me, a legacy worth building and something I'd be happy to leave behind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so
Sounds like you're going to be extremely successful at it.
that would be great, right? That would be super. I am nowhere near the peak of, I'm just getting
We're
started.
just getting started.
Yeah,
I love
for
it.
sure.
Well, we always ask this one question to all of our guests. This is called the Atlanta Agent Playbook podcast. And my goal is to collect as many plays that I can from top producing agents. What's the one play or piece of advice that you want to give to agents out there?
Oh, well, obviously niche, right? Get really specific. It's one thing to categorize yourself as a listing agent or a buyer agent, but get really granular with it. And you are going to reach such a large group of people that are not being specifically targeted. And you're going to have more business than you've ever thought of. It's, absolutely niche. Yeah.
Well, you heard it here. Thank you, Megan, for being on the show.
Yes.
Thanks for contributing to our playbook. How can listeners reach out to you?
Oh, you can find me online. I have a Google My Business page. It's Megan Farrow. I think Megan Farrow, Keller Williams might be up there. And you can find me on Facebook, Megan Farrow. I've got a couple of other Facebook pages, but don't search for them because I haven't built them out yet. That's a piece of leverage I'm missing. So if you have a recommendation, I need a social media manager.
I think we all do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just there's every time I feel like I've got one platform under control, another one pops up that I've got it now. But and Facebook is a very easy and powerful way to get the message out when you've decided to niche, because I'm sure that on your Facebook, you've got lots of agents that are your friends and they're all posting the same stuff.
Yeah.
But it's the ones that are posting things that are super unique and specific that stand out. And that's just not going to be on your feed. That's going to be on everybody that's, following them. So niching, number one, I think it is the best way to stand out in a pretty tough market, right? We're kind of in a tough market. So you can reach out to me on Facebook, or you can find me on Google, or, I can give my phone number. I don't know if you guys want me to do
Feel
that
free.
on the air.
It's up to you.
Maybe just if you do the work and you find me online, you can call or text me.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Benjamin.